Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz and welcome. Today we're going to begin a full playthrough with Votes for Women, the game where you fight for women's suffrage in the United States, designed by Tory Brown and published by Fort Circle Games. Today we're going to play the role of the suffragists and we're going to let the game AI take the role of the opposition. Can we realize suffrage in the United States, or will women go for decades without the right to vote? It's all on us. Let's jump in and get started. So let's do a quick overview of the game and what we are trying to accomplish. This, of course, is the battleground of the United States. We have 48 states in this point in history. And we have two objectives. In order for us to win women's suffrage over the course of this 6-turn game, we have to accomplish two things. First, we have to get Congress to pass the 19th Amendment. And this is symbolized by this congressional track down here. We use these white symbols, these white cylinders, to symbolize congressional support. We have to get 6 of them down here, and that means that Congress has sent the 19th Amendment to the individual states to be ratified. We'll talk about how we do that over the course of gameplay as we get into the game, but that's one objective. Our second objective is that we have to get support from 75% of the 48 states. So we need to get 36 states to ratify the 19th Amendment, which is symbolized by these green check marks. Now, this locking in of ratification can only happen after congressional support, after the 19th Amendment has been passed and sent to the states. But the way we're trying to do that is through the symbolism of these purple and gold cubes. And these symbolize support for women's suffrage. These are the two colors of women's suffrage in the United States. Once we get 4 there, after Congress has passed the 19th Amendment, this locks this support in place and we turn it to a green check mark. Likewise, anti-suffrage support is symbolized by these red cubes. They're trying to get 4 to lock in the vote against women's suffrage. So if we get 13 red X's on these states, then we automatically lose the game. We get 36, we win the game. So over the course of 6 turns, we're going to be battling to do these two things: win support in the individual states, and this is going to happen in the beginning part of the game as the nature of the framework and the fabric of support and for and against suffrage plays out in the different states while we're working for national support. So we're trying to do these two things, but we can only lock in that support after it's been passed at the national level. Let's quickly talk about our tools that we have to accomplish our task. Our main tool is a card-driven game. We are going to play 6 rounds in each one of these 6 turns, where we're going to be playing cards from this suffragist deck. And so we're going to be playing these cards. We can play them for their events, and we can do some other things with them to add gold and purple cubes to these individual states to start to swing support for suffrage. And we also might use the cards to bring support at the national level. So the cards are by far our biggest tool that we use. These are the cards in our deck. The Oppobot is going to be playing cards against us to win support for anti-suffrage and eradicate our support for suffrage. So it's going to be a card battle between these two decks, and we're going to have to use this deck well in order to win. The second tool in our arsenal are these buttons for support. These signify different levels of support for suffrage, and we're going to be using these. These are kind of wild cards. We can re-roll dice. We can bid for strategy cards. We can do a bunch of things with these buttons. So that's kind of our currency that we're going to have off on the side to kind of swing important decisions in the battle for suffrage. The other thing that we have are these strategy cards, and we'll talk about how these are used, but both the suffragists and the opposition are going to be bidding in a way to try to get these strategy cards that are kind of extra cards that we can use for us or can be used against us. So we're going to be playing to try to get as many of these strategy cards as we can. There's also states cards. These states cards are another thing we're going to try to win, and we'll talk about how these work as we get into the game a little bit. So those are the third and fourth things that we're going to be using to try to influence the outcome of the battle for suffrage in the United States. The last thing we've got are these campaigners. Now, there's some that are pro-suffrage, and there's some that are against suffrage. These are also going to be shifting around the United States, influencing different places, and we can use these to kind of bring influence to particular regions that we want to kind of heighten the battle for. So those really are our 5 tools. And again, we'll kind of talk about how these all get used as the game moves forward. But I think with that in mind, we now know about our 5 tools. We know about our 2 objectives. we can actually start to play the game. Now, everything is ready to go in this game. We've prepared the suffragist deck and the Autobot deck. The only thing we haven't done as part of the startup phase is to prepare these strategy and states cards, but I want to show how that's done because it's going to be able to talk a little bit about how we're going to use these in play. Let's set up the strategy cards for the game here. We are basically, there's always 3 that are going to be potentially in play, so we're going to flip over 3 of these cards and put them right here, and I'll put the deck out of the way. We can see a national focus, a counter strategy, and a bellwether state. Now there's going to be a bidding phase for these cards, but it doesn't happen in turn 1, so we will revisit these in turn 2 during that strategy phase where we can bid these. We're going to talk about how the bidding works and how the opposition kind of counters these, but for the right now we're just going to leave these off to the side, knowing that in some point in time coming through the game, we're going to try to get our hands on some of these strategy cards. Now let's set up the states cards. To do that, there are 12 of them. We're going to remove 3 from the game and put those aside, and then we're going to spread the other 9 out. And we'll talk about these a little bit right now. Let's do 1, 2, I'll get these ready. All right, so I've flipped over the 9 cards that are going to be in play in this game, and the other 3 are out. These are the only cards we're going to use. We will never add to this total. These signify kind of key states in this rendition of our battle for suffrage. And how we get control of these cards is the first side that gets 4 cubes, 4 support cubes in this particular state immediately takes control of that card. So one of our goals and one of our strategies as we play the game here as the fight for suffrage is we want to try to get 4 support cubes, purple or gold, total up to 4 in California, Georgia, Texas, Utah, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Ohio, and Montana, because there are 9 of these, and as the pro-suffragist player, I definitely want to see if we can get control of 7 or more of these. So the early part of our game, I want to try to play to be able to get as much support for suffrage in these key states as possible. Now, the Autobot has some rules in there that's going to make that they emphasize taking control of these states too, but we want to really hammer them on this. So we'll see how these play out as the game goes. For right now, all we want to know is that we want to get control of these because these are going to allow us to play extra kind of phases in our turns and extra cards, swing the battle for us. So our emphasis in the early part of the game is going to be, let's get at least 7 of these in order to have a chance to win the game. And now our game is completely set up and we are ready to move into turn 1. Every turn starts out with a planning phase, and what this means is in the solo mode is that we are going to draw our first 6 cards from the suffragist deck, giving us a total hand at the start of the turn with 7 cards in it. So let's do that now and see what cards we get. We automatically get this Seneca Falls Convention card at the beginning of the game. So this is one of our 7 cards, and this is the card we play in the very first turn. It's actually kind of a setup item that plays out in the first turn. But we're going to deal another 6 cards from this deck, so I'll pull these out and then we'll take a look at them. Here are the 6 cards that we've drawn, and let's talk a little bit about these. Every card has an event. We can see the event text in here, and that's one of 4 ways that we can play the card. We basically can read this petition for Congress and execute what it says here. So this one, for example, says add 1 national level support to Congress, so one of those white cylinders, and add 1 purple or gold cube in each state of each of the 6 regions in the United States. So that's one way we can play it. You'll also notice that is the event aspect here, and then there's some historical context down below and then a picture at the top here. You'll also notice that this early bar sits in the middle. There are 3 types of suffragist cards and opposition cards: early, middle, and late. And we're going to play through all of the middle cards in the deck first, all of the early cards first, then the middle cards, and then the late cards. Now, the cards tend to get stronger, so one of kind of our strategy points, we may have some options to kind of choose 2 cards from the deck and discard 1 and play the other. So anything that can kind of accelerate our progress through the deck generally will work to our advantage because it's going to get us to those more powerful cards later. So that's kind of something that we want to keep in mind as we're playing. But there are 3 other ways we can play a card in addition to the event. We could optionally play to use these campaigners to get specific support for suffrage in regions, and we'll show how that works in the first turn, because we'll probably do that once. The other thing we can do is we can lobby. You play a card, instead of using the event, we can lobby for national support, which means that for every campaigner we have active in the United States on the map, right now we have 0, we get to roll one 6-sided die, and if we get a 6, we get to add a white cylinder to national support. So we'll talk about how that works when we get to that level if we do it. Lastly, we can play a card to gain 2 buttons. So we can ignore the event, we can discard a card, and we can add to our total here 2 of these support buttons if we really need them. So those are basically the 4 ways that we can play a card as we go through the game. And now that we've dealt the cards, we've gone through the planning phase, we skip the strategy phase in turn 1. So right now we go to the operations phase, and this is the heart of the game. We get 6 rounds in each turn, so we're going to play 6 of the 7 cards in our hand, and we're going to have 1 left over to start the next round. Now the game starts with this special card, which is a start card, and the suffragist player always goes first, the Oppobot's going to go second. So to start the game, we're going to play the Seneca Falls Convention. And this is basically led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. The resulting declaration of sentiment helped advance and shape the struggle for women's suffrage. So this is going to get our cause started, and we're going to play it for the event, which is to add 1 campaigner, a purple campaigner, and 1 gold campaigner in the Northeast region, get 2 really cool buttons, and then add 2 cubes, 1 gold and purple, or 2 of each color, in New York. So let's keep our buttons off to the side here, and let's go add these to New York, add these cubes to New York, and add our campaigners to the Northeast region. All right, so we are going to drop down our campaigners. Actually, I'll put them sideways so they'll be easier to see on the camera here. Normally I would stand them up. We have 2 campaigners in the Northeast, and we're going to add support to New York. We just dropped them right in the state. Now we could play 2 purple or 2 gold, and as a general rule, I think it's wise to split them up, because there are opposition cards and events that are going to come out and say, find the state with the most purple and take them all away. Find the state with the most gold and take them all away. So the more balanced we are, the less painful those cards are going to be. So I like to kind of split them up whenever we have the option of doing that. So we put 1 in New York, 1 gold and 1 purple in New York, and we have our 2 campaigners in play. Seneca Falls Convention is underway, and the battle for women's suffrage has started. So that's round 1 for us as the suffragist player. Now the Oppobot gets to play. They likewise have a starting card that they use for round 1, turn 1, turn 3, and turn 5. So turn 1, round 1, the Oppobot plays this card. And the Oppobot doesn't have a hand when you're playing against them. We're just going to take the top card off the deck and execute that card based on some rules of execution. But the Oppobot answers our Seneca Falls Convention with this card called the Patriarchy. And we can start to see that it's going to be an uphill battle. Let's take a look at this card close up. So the patriarchy, this says, first coined in 1632, patriarchy describes a social hierarchy and system of political power dominated by men for their own advantage. This is the starting position for the anti-suffrage movement. And listen to this. Play on turn 1, round 1. Add 1 campaigner in the South region and add 1 opposition block in each state in the Northeast region, the Atlantic region, and the Appalachia region, the South region, and the Midwest region. This signifies the starting sentiment in the United States at this time against suffrage. So let's go put this into play. So to play this, we add our campaigner to the South region here, and then we're going to add 1 red cube in each state in the Northeast region. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and again, there are 6 regions with 8 states in each region to get us to 48. So we put 1 in each of those 7 states. And now let's just talk a little bit about New York here, because New York right now has 2 pro-suffrage cubes, support cubes. We don't add a red one like that in a case like this. We just signify the shift in difference by removing a cube. And as the anti-suffrage player, we can remove each one. So the pro-suffrage support goes from 2 to 1, signifying the addition of that 1 red block. So each state only has blocks from one side in it active at any one point in time. So that's the Northeast, which has suddenly become painted red, except for a little hopeful spot in New York. Let's add them to the other regions and take a look at what it looks like. And here we can see what happens after we add all these cubes. What a massive anti-suffrage sentiment scattered across the eastern half of the United States. Now, the western states, they don't hate us yet, but they're definitely not our friends yet either. But the eastern half of the United States, we can see, has fallen victim to a strong patriarchy sentiment, and we're going to have to climb uphill to be able to win these states. So let's now go to our second round here. We get to play one of our cards. So thinking a little bit on strategy here, we want to try to win as many of these states cards as we got. I'm showing these right now. I would also like to end this turn with 4 buttons, because that's going to be part of my bidding strategy. I want to bid 4 buttons for the strategy cards that sit off on the other side in the beginning of turn 2. And so to get there, we don't have any cards in our hand that allow us to add more buttons, unfortunately. We could play a card for the buttons, but I'd like to see if we can get there a different way. So I want to see if we can win New York and win New Jersey. And so this is going to be kind of our first emphasis, is let's see if we can win these 2 states here. So, because that will give us, I think if we can win New York, I think we can get New Jersey, and that will get us 2 of our 9 cards that we're trying to get here. So let's take a look at how we might do that. So looking at our cards, I wish we had better cards. I feel like we don't have the greatest cards to try to do this. Frederick Douglass here allows us to add sport in the Northeast region, but I think what we want to do is, the Plains region is fairly neutral, and there's only 1 state strategy card right there now. So I think what we can do is we can play Pioneer Women here, and instead of playing it for the event, we're going to play it for a campaign action. So let's go do that. So instead of playing Pioneer Women for its event, we're going to play it for a campaign action. And what happens is then, for each one of our campaigners, we roll 1 4-sided die. And then we can add those cubes to the region that the campaigner is in. We could also spend a button to move a campaigner to a different region, but we're going to concentrate on the Northeast, so this is good. Now, what I'm hoping for are 3s or greater, because if we get 3s or greater, I think we can do a thing here to win both New York and New Jersey in the first roll. So let's see what we get here. Hoping for a good roll with these 4-sided dice. Oh, close. We get a 4 and a 2. So we are going to assign 4 purple cubes to our purple campaigner here. And then we're going to assign, actually I think we're okay now that I think of it. We're going to assign 2 yellow cubes to our yellow campaigner, and now we get to distribute these among the states in the Northeast region. And I think what we can do is this right here. So let's add 2 purple and 1 gold to New York, which gives us 4, which means now we can immediately grab the New York State card. Boom. And we'll play this momentarily, but let's hold on to our horses here. We have to distribute these other 3 cubes. Let's distribute 1 purple one in New Jersey to wipe out the purple support, wipe out the red support that's there, and then we'll distribute the other gold and the other purple in New Jersey, giving us 2 cubes here in New Jersey. But now we've grabbed the New York card, and in each round you can play 1 state card or 1 strategy card if you have them in your hand. So we are going to immediately play this one, and we're going to add 6 gold or purple into the Northeast region. No more than 2 per state. Perfect. So what we can do now is, let's take 3 gold and 3 purple, because we want to split our colors up, and let's decide where we want to spend them. First, we'll spend 1 of each in New Jersey, because it's no more than 2 per state. We'll spend 1 of each in New Jersey. Now we've got 4 in New Jersey. Boom! We win the New Jersey card. Now we can't play it because we already played New York. We'll put it as kind of off to the side in our arsenal of cards to play, but we've picked up 2 of the states right now, and that's good because we got the 2 cards that are in the Northeast region. Now we have these other 4 cubes to play in the Northeast region. Let's decide how we want to spend them. Let's get Massachusetts because that's where I'm from. We'll put purple there. And let's go to New Hampshire because I kind of like New Hampshire too. That's really cool. Vermont's really awesome. And my brother has a place in Connecticut, so let's do Connecticut. So we'll leave Rhode Island and Maine to kind of, oh, sorry, I did that wrong, right? Because there was red support there. So we just neutralized the support there. Sorry, that makes sense? So we took away the 4 red cubes, and that's how we spent the support there in that region. So now we're done with our second round turn here. The Northeast looks a little bit better, and we've got 2 of the 9 state cards in our arsenal, one of which we've already played. So let's see how the Autobot responds. Their first card drawn from the deck is Minor v. Happersett. The Supreme Court ruled that the 14th Amendment did not grant suffrage to women because the Constitution doesn't confer voting rights to anyone. So how this is played, it says, if there is at least 1 white cylinder of congressional support in Congress. And right now there are none. There's no congressional support for Congress. So we can't play the card for the event. If there were, we would remove that support from Congress and add 2 opposition cubes to Missouri. But we can't play it for the event. Now, when you can't play an opposition card for the event, you play it for a campaigning action. And how this works is we're going to randomly determine which region in the United States we move that 1 campaigner that's in the South right now to, and then we're going to add anti-suffrage support, opposition support to a particular state. So let's see how that works. So if we look at the map of the United States, we can see that each region has a name, but it also has a number above it. West is 1, Appalachia, Atlantic and Appalachia is 5. And so we're going to roll a 6-sided die to determine which region the campaigner moves to. So we get a 2. So the campaigner moves to, unfortunately, that's not kind of what we wanted. Oh, actually, that's not bad. Moves to the plains. That's good, because right now there's no support there. So now we have to decide which of the 8 states the anti-suffrage campaign, the opposition, is going to play their cubes, their support cubes into. And how we do that is by looking at right now, is looking to see if there's any unclaimed state card in this region. And Montana is one of our 7 state cards remaining that's still in play. So the opposition is going to concentrate on Montana. We're going to roll 1 4-sided die and put that many opposition supports in the state. Now we're hoping here, obviously, we don't want a 4, because if we get a 4, the opposition's going to get the Montana card. So let's see what happens here. A 3. Oh, we just barely survived. Okay, so Montana is still in play, but things are looking a little bit grim in the great state of Montana. Right now, they have 3 anti-suffrage support. And that basically ends the turn for the opposition player. Now we go to our turn, round 3 of turn 1. All right, so let's go to our round 3 turn. Now we can play these state cards before or after we play our regular card. So let's do this right away. New Jersey says receive 2 buttons. So we're going to play the New Jersey card. We will discard that and we will get 2 more of these buttons, giving us 4, which is kind of what I want, because I want to bid 4 for the strategy card that comes up at the beginning of round 2. So now we're going to play our card. Now we have 4 rounds left. I think we want to save the Union Victory one for the next time. And it's not too important which ones of these we're going to play or what we're going to do, but I think we will play the Petition to Congress card. So let's take a look. So the Petition to Congress card does 2 things. We're going to play it for its event. We're going to add 1 congressional support cylinder to the national support. So we are 1/6 of the way to getting the amendment passed by the Congress and sending it to the states. And we can add 1 gold or purple cube in each state, in 1 state of each region. So that means 6 regions, 6 cubes. Let's see how we might want to do this. So just as food for thought, I think we would definitely like to get Texas over Georgia, because it looks a little bit more powerful and it might allow us to get Georgia. Likewise, Illinois and Utah. So we're going to concentrate on these states in these regions, and we're going to try to knock down Montana a little bit, and then we'll just kind of add them to random states in the other areas. So let's take a look at how we'll do that. So we get to add 1 support to each of the 6 regions. We'll add a gold to Utah. Let's go for Texas. So we're going to remove the red support for Texas to symbolize our involvement there. We're also going to try to nibble away at Montana. We might lose Montana eventually, but we might as well try to chip away at it. Then let's go for Illinois. So we're going to take away the anti-suffrage support in Illinois. We've done 4 of the regions now. In the Atlantic and Appalachia region, let's just go for Pennsylvania, I guess. I think there are states you want to go for because there might be opposition cards that hit those hard, but I don't really know what they are. I'm not super detailed at the game yet, so we'll just do that. And then let's actually try to, in the Northeast, let's go for Rhode Island and erode the support there. So we have made our 6 entrants in there, and we have played the universal suffrage card. So we are done with our turn. Let's go to the Opobots card and see what nasty things they have in plans for us here. Border states. Border states complicate the simplistic narrative of the Civil War as North versus South, as they prove to be a difficult ground for suffragists after the war. Add 1 anti-suffrage block in each of Delaware, Maryland, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Missouri. So again, building up sentiment in the eastern part of the United States. Let's go put this into place. All right, so the 5 states here are Delaware, now doubles their support, they're halfway there. Maryland, but again, it doesn't lock into place until the 19th Amendment is passed by Congress, so we can still kind of counteract this, and these aren't critical states here. West Virginia doubles its anti-suffrage support, Kentucky as well, and then Missouri. All the states bordering North versus South, hence the border states name of the card. All right, let's go to our turn, round 4 of our first turn. All right, now these 3 states, these 3 cards are very similar coming in here to our last 3 plays. It says roll an 8-sided die and add that number of cubes in the Midwest region, no more than 1 per state. This is the same card here, the Frederick Douglass, works the same way except for the Northeast. This works the same way except for the Atlantic and Appalachia region. Now, we could technically use these for campaigning, but I would like to get some support, and average-wise, it's not that different between rolling 2 of these and 1 of these, although we can get some wide swings here. But let's see how we do. Let's see if we can work on the Midwest, because there are no key states in the Appalachia region or Atlantic, and we've got the ones in the Northeast. So let's just kind of hammer away here at the Midwest. So we are going to go Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth implored attendees at an Ohio suffrage convention to include black women in their fight. So we're going to roll 1 8-sided die, and we're going to add that number of cubes to the Midwest region, hoping, of course, here for a big number. Let's get a nice big number. 6. Okay, we'll take it. So we can add 6 cubes to the Midwest region. Let's go do that. So both Illinois and Ohio are key states. So we're definitely going to add 1 to Illinois, and we're going to take away that 1 anti-suffrage for Ohio. We can do 4 more. Let's chip away at Missouri in hopes that we can win that one. We won't give up any states yet. That gives us 3 more. Let's do, Minnesota, of course, Wisconsin, and Indiana. Sounds pretty good. We'll leave Iowa and Michigan in the anti-suffrage state condition right now. And we will discard Sojourner Truth, and now we go to the opposition turn. Let's see what the Opobot is up to. Southern resentment. As the Reconstruction dragged on, resentment of Northern influence and black citizenship arose, fostering backlash to political progress in the South. So this says, play if the 15th Amendment is in effect. The 15th Amendment gave African Americans the right to vote. It is not in effect. We haven't seen any of those in effect yet. So we will use this for campaigning for the anti-suffrage movement. So we're going to roll a 6-sided die to determine which region. Region 3, which is the South, that's not good. Let's take a look at how this is going to work. So region 3 is the South. And now the rules for the AI bot, we're going to roll a die to determine, we have to determine which state the Opobot plays its opposition anti-suffrage support in. And the rule is they concentrate on if there's any state cards left. Both Georgia and Texas are state cards left. When there are 2 options for the Opobot to play into, we randomly pick 1. So we're kind of hoping, I don't know, we don't want to get a big number anyway, but let's see what happens. We will use a 1, 2, 3 to signify Texas and a 4, 5, 6 to signify Georgia. We get a 4, so we're going to roll into Georgia. That's where the support goes. We're going to roll the 12-sided die with 1 to 4 results on it. If they get a 3 or a 4, Georgia, they will get the Georgia card and play it. They get a 2. Excellent. Once again, we get just lucky enough that we don't lose the potential to get the Georgia card and don't give it up to the Opobot. So that worked out pretty well for us, I think, on the whole there. Although Georgia looking a little bit precarious down here, we might not get that state. Let's go to our 5th round in turn 1. We have 2 cards left to play. We're going to play Francis Harper and Frederick Douglass. Let's start with Francis Harper to start to whittle away some of the support in the Atlantic and Appalachia region. Now, Harper co-founded the American Women's Suffrage Association, noting, "You white women speak here of rights, I speak of wrongs." We're going to roll an 8-sided die and add that number in the Atlantic and Appalachia region, no more than 1 per state. Again, hoping for a big number, 4. That's less than average, but we'll take it. It's not a horrible number. Let's go add that support to Atlantic and Appalachia region. So we got 4. I think what we're going to do is just, because we want to try to win a lot of these, let's just whittle away the support in Delaware, Maryland, West Virginia, and Kentucky. So we're going to remove those 4 cubes and get rid of those, and that finishes our turn. Let's go to the Applebot turn in round 5 of turn 1. Let's see what they've got in store for us. South Dakota rejects suffrage. Play if there is at least 1 support in Congress, and there is. Remove 1 support from token from Congress and add 2 opposition cubes in South Dakota. We'll take that. I actually, I think we're going to see that national support get whittled away for a while, and that we can kind of make a stronger push for it later. So to lose a support, that's okay, and to get a card get played by the opposition and only get 2 anti-suffrage cubes is fine, and we'll take it in South Dakota because I think we're going to be able to get some support there later. So let's go put this into play. First thing we do is national support for women's suffrage goes down to 0 again. Congress is not interested yet in our cause. Up to the Plains region, 2 anti-suffrage support in South Dakota. Let's go now to our final round of turn 1. So in our 6th round, our 6th phase of turn 1, we're going to play the Frederick Douglass card. An abolitionist and influential suffrage leader, Douglass wrote in his influential North Star newspaper, "Our doctrine is, right is of no sex." Frederick Douglass. So we're going to roll an 8-sided die, and we're going to add that number of cubes in the Northeast region, no more than 1 per state. Be nice to get a big number here. Come on, Frederick Douglass, do a good job this time. 4. Mediocre at best, but we'll take it. Let's go put Frederick Douglass's impact into play. So we've got 4 cubes to play. Let's go for Massachusetts, because that's where I'm from. New Hampshire. Let's actually erode the support from Maine, and then let's add 1 to Vermont as well. So that gives us our 4 in there, and Frederick Douglass's influence on women's suffrage in the Northeast region is now complete, and we have finished our final play in turn 1. Let's go to the Applebot's final turn. Let's see what the Applebot is up to. 15th divides suffragists. Play if the 15th Amendment is in effect. It is not. So once again, we will go to campaigning for the anti-suffrage player. So we're going for the Applebot. We're going to roll this die to determine the region. It'd be nice to get a 6 for the Northeast, or 5 places where we don't have states cards in play. So hoping for a 5 or a 6. Oh, nice, 5. Called it. So that is the Atlantic and Appalachia. So we will move our anti-suffrage campaigner from the south to the Atlantic and Appalachia region, which is region 5, and now we have to add the cubes. Now, there are no key states in the Appalachia region, which is kind of why we wanted him to end up here, in which case we are going to randomly determine a state that it falls into. So there are 8 states in each region, and in addition to the names, we can see that a state has a number. So Tennessee is 1, Kentucky is 2, and so on. So we are going to roll the die, and this is where the opposition will put its support. It is number 2, so it's going into Kentucky. Now, once again, we'll roll the 12-sided die with the numbers from 1 to 4 to add that many support. Let's get a nice 1. 3. That's not good. Okay. So we'll add our 3 cubes into Kentucky. Kentucky is up to 4. So if the 19th Amendment had been ratified, this state would get a red check mark. Kentucky would be the first state to go against us. But because it's not been ratified yet, again, it just sits in this condition. And that brings us to the end of turn 1. In the cleanup phase, we want to check to make sure that we only have 1 card left. We do. It's the Union Victory card that we're going to hold on to for turn 2. And we now move the turn marker up to turn 2. And we are going to continue on with the turn 2 in our next video. So far, I'd have to say it wasn't an outstanding first turn, I don't think. But we did pick up 2 states cards, which is good. And we haven't lost any states cards, which is good. We have got some decent support in the Northeast. We've kind of neutralized the Midwest. I mean, we got fair rolls for our campaigning, and considering that I wasn't all that excited about the cards that we got in the first round, in the first turn, I'm a little bit optimistic that maybe in turn 2 we can pick up some more of those key state cards. Maybe like California or Illinois or something would be really nice to get. That would be a good one to swing that Midwest to our favor. So I will put a link to our next video as soon as it's ready. Let me know if you have questions down below. I'm going to try to do 2 turns per video after this, which will make this probably a 4-episode series when we're all done with it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.